Right, it's 7th of the 8th, 2013. It's 1:47, or it's 1:50 into 2, according to me at the clock. And I've just woken up and coughing and went to the loo. Now, before I woke up, I was having a dream. It was quite vivid, and it went on for a little while, and a couple of interesting parts to the dream. I was working at a place overlooking Loch Ness. I didn't realise this at first, but it was anyway. That's where it was, and it was like a sort of summer holiday camp type place, and people were hiring things to go sort of lake surfing on, and what they were using was sheets of big sheets of glass, and they were like skimming across the water. Now, we were doing that, and then suddenly the weather changed and it got really, really bad, and to a point where it was quite dangerous, and the leader of the group, who I believe is someone I know, a young woman, was like directing everyone and telling them it was safe to go out there, which obviously wasn't, because it was really, really windy, and it was like lightning, and the sky was dark and everything, and those sheets of glass were flying all over the place. But she was insisting it was safe. She was talking not to me, to someone else, telling them that if they did it in a certain way, it would be okay. Now, as she was doing this, and sort of these sheets of glass were just flying everywhere, one of them crashed into me, hit me on the head, and another one kind of sort of crashed into the ground and slid and sort of broke up. So obviously it wasn't safe, because these sheets of glass were like really quite thin. It would slice you open, they come with a knee. And anyway, I went and put a few of them away in what looked like a car park. It was grassy, but there were some cars parked there, and I piled quite a few sheets of glass on top of each other, so they'd be out of the way and safe. And then we were looking down, and there were lots of things going on, and someone said they thought they could see people swimming in the loch, and they were professionals. I think it was a leader who said this. And I thought, you can't see anything really. But then I noticed this huge Loch Ness monster, and it was very visible. It was absolutely ginormous, much bigger than dinosaurs are, and it was like a Loch Ness monster, and it was just sitting there, down sort of like down a cliff, but sort of above the lake. And then I noticed a little one, and there were like kids running around playing, even though the weather was awful, and one of them was playing with a little baby Loch Ness monster, and no one seemed to bat an eyelid. It was like obviously common knowledge that they were there, and that was that. Now, after a while, the weather sort of started to calm down, and we went inside, and someone had just baked some cakes. One of the staff or one of the team, and the cakes were still hot, and they were putting them away, and I was like passing them sort of lids and bottom cake container bits, and it was all sort of playful and fun. And then someone wanted to get by me, this girl who was called, well, I know her, she works somewhere in the work, and her name is Daisy, I think, and she's very little and sweet. Now, this is another thing, because I always call young women who I find attractive little girls, but they're not. I don't mean little girls, I mean young women, but sort of petite little women that I have a penchant for. Not young girls, young women, and but I have a habit of saying little. So anyway, she was like trying to get past me, but she couldn't. So I was like backing down this sort of hallway gangway thing, and as she was coming at me, and she was smiling all the time, I was like giving her little kisses on the mouth, like that, and she didn't mind. She was like sort of smiling and sort of quite happy about it. And I thought how lovely that was, because if that was in real life, you get someone sort of suing you or having you up for sure what's it. And it's just playful fun. And she didn't mind, and she was like smiling and really happy. So I was pleased about that. But later on in my dream, someone mentioned it and said that I think her boyfriend had come in, and he didn't like it, and he was angry, and he was like going about sexual harassment and that. But she didn't mind at all, and she liked me. And I was like, God. Anyway, after we'd sort of done this, some of the holiday makers came in, and they were an elderly couple, and they came into what looked like a canteen, and they said, "Where can you get coffee?" And the answer was, "We didn't know." And I suppose normally there would have been some sort of people working there, and they would have known, and they would have had coffee ready, but there was no one working there. Just us team members, and so I offered to come make one. So off I went, and I went sort of down the gangway into the back to the kitchens, and it was a bit like kitchens and laboratories and all sorts of funny things going on. So whether that was like part of what was being done at the holiday camp, or whether it was a research centre or something, but I couldn't find a kettle. So I was like looking around, and eventually I found this little kettle which was like half the size of a normal one. And I looked at it, and it looked okay, and I looked inside, and it looked okay. So then I went to this little tap, and it wasn't a proper bathroom kitchen tap or anything like that. And I sort of started rinsing out, and I rinsed out a few times, and it was funny colour. I rinsed it more and more, and eventually it was clear. And I looked at the water, and that was coming out the tap, and that was clear as well. And I couldn't find a lead, so I sort of went, and then I found some leads hanging up. So I sort of went somewhere else and sort of plugged it in, and then I was looking for the cup, and nothing was falling to hand, so it obviously wasn't a place where people make coffee normally. But I eventually found some coffee, so I kind of boiled up this kettle, and then I made 2 cups of coffee. Now one of them was full, and the other was only half full because the kettle was full. So I kind of dabbled about with that, and then I found some sugar, and then I needed to find some milk, so there was no milk around, I couldn't see a fridge. So the quickest thing to do, although it was quite on my way, was to go back to my dormitory, or my room that I was staying in, and get some milk, which I did. And in the meantime, the manager, the big manager of the whole place, the centre, came, and he was moaning because this sort of customer had been going on about coffee. And he was saying, we're not in the permitted coffee area, and that he was standing in this little garden, which was obviously a side bit to the kitchen area, and smoking, and it wasn't permitted. And it wasn't a normal day; it was like a special day, and it was like this weather was awful. So under the circumstances, people do, the weather was really quite dangerous and nasty, and so people do sort of not normal things, don't they? Anyway, this guy, the customer, obviously needed a coffee and a cigarette. So, I said to the manager, blah, blah, blah. I knew it wasn't, the correct procedure, but, we could get a coffee, and it was cold and wet, and they were a bit sort of psyched up. So I'd offered to make them one, out of the goodness of my heart. And I managed to persuade him that was okay. And off he went, but he was sort of muttering. And anyway, eventually, so I came back with the milk, and I made them the coffee. And I sort of handed it through a window into the garden area. And I said, I'm not sure what this is going to taste like, but hopefully it'll be alright. And I sort of made a little joke about hopefully it wouldn't kill them. Which is what I normally do, see at work, but people take it seriously, and they go and complain because of stuff like that. But anyway, he didn't. He took it as it was. And I think the coffee was okay. And he said it was like, that's pretty good. And his wife. But it's really weird because it was like a laboratory, and disused, and higgledy-piggledy. But quite interestingly, I was staying in this place, obviously, helping out with an adventure park with these huge sheets of glass that we were kind of using it for sport, for some new kind of sport with sheets of glass. And after afterwards we were all talking about it, and I'd said what had been happening, and that, you know, this person had said it was safe, when obviously it wasn't, because sheets of glass were just flying all over the place and crashing, and they hit me on the head, and the other one sort of crashed and sort of smothered not very far from me. And we were just discussing that really, and then it's just interesting where your dreams take you. Obviously it had references to Alpha and Superdrug, because these two people worked in those places, and I won't say where the Astor one was or who it was, but it was someone that misinterpreted what I said, and obviously didn't like it. And the other one is someone that I like at work, who I just can't talk to because it would be inappropriate. So I don't get the chance because they don't work in the pharmacy as such. So, but you know, why those two people came into my head tonight, because I haven't seen either of them, but worked in those places for a while. And why we were in Loch Ness and doing the sports, you know, there's no connection to anything that I know about, really. But it was, you know, vivid and intense and real. The man who wanted a coffee was a bit like Terry, who was the pharmacist in Astor and Launceston for years, and he comes in occasionally and he sort of says hello to the girls, and he's recently moved, and he's quite old, he's not retirement age, and he's not the kind of man you would expect to be a pharmacist. He's quite sort of down to earth and likeable, but obviously very upset with how he's been treated by Tesco's, and so he's got a grudge. But so it was him. He was the man wanting coffee. But that's just by the by, I think. So anyway, I didn't know whether I was going to get in trouble for making coffee, and hoped I hadn't poisoned him, which I don't think it is, because I went to lots of trouble. So also, apart from being told off for not making coffee in the correct way, I was also commended for going out of my way to make this nice cup of coffee. And we didn't charge him, I just said it's on the house after the weather and such. So it was all quite an interesting dream. So there you are.